Hey guys, I thought I'd just do a quick video just to basically show you how to get a little bit of depth in your drawings. It was something that when I first started drawing portraits, my drawings looked a little bit flat. So I sort of looked online and looked at some tutorials, and I found the best thing to do was to try and draw some spheres, some 3D spheres from a circle. So I'm just going to quickly draw one and just show you the basics of it. I'm going to start with a 2H pencil. I've also got an HB pencil, a 2B pencil, and my trusted kneadable eraser, which is really, really important. So if we start with a 2H pencil, if we start off by just drawing sort of a basic circle, it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. Now, the important thing for you to decide is what direction the light's going to come from. So if I go over that in the 2B, which is a little bit darker, so you can see it on the camera. So if the light's coming from this direction, what we need to understand is this area here is going to be called the highlight. This is going to be the white area. If I just quickly show you my latest portrait that I've done, so this is of Morgan Freeman, you can clearly see that the highlighted areas are here on the guy's forehead, around the nose there. So the light is coming in from this direction, which is the same direction that I'm going to show you on the sphere video. This side here is the darkened area. So this is what's going to give you the illusion of form and shape in your flat drawings. So what I'm basically going to do to start with is I'm going to start off, wrong pencil, with the 2H, which is a very light pencil. It's very easy to rub out, and I'm going to cover the darkest area to begin with. Doesn't need to be neat. So we're covering the darkest area, which is facing away from the light. And the bottom also is very dark, because obviously no light can get there. Light's travelling in a straight line, which is how we get the illusion of shape, because the areas towards the light are obviously catching the first rays of the light, and it's shading the other areas. Basically, all you've got in anything you look at, whether it's a table or a person out in the sunshine or even in a dark, dimly lit room, you've basically got light areas and dark areas. There's no lines on anything. The darkest areas are obviously what are going to show up as your shaded areas, your shadows. The lighter areas, where the light's hitting it, is where you're going to get your colours starting to come through. If you're looking at a colour picture, or if you're drawing a pencil portrait, you're going to get your lighter tones, your light greys, almost to the whites. So we've covered it all in with this 2H. Let me just blend that slightly. So I'm actually going to use it's called an artist chamois. It's a chamois leather, the same kind of chamois leather that you would dry your car off after you've washed it, but it's very, very thin, very, very soft, and it just gives you a really, really nice, smooth blend. You've got to be careful you don't buy a really cheap one, because as you're rubbing it on the cheap one, it can start to disintegrate and mark the paper, which we don't want. So I'm going to go in with the HB pencil now, which is slightly darker, and just working from the darkest areas of the circle, the sphere. We're going to shade this in. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect by any means. Now, the funny thing is about light is, although it's coming from this direction, you are actually going to get a little bit of light rebounding from any surfaces that are over here. So your darkest area on your sphere is going to be this midsection here. So anywhere here and here is going to be the darkest area, because this area here is going to be lighter, because you're going to be getting the light shining in or shining up from the floor or any surfaces that are around the area, table or a chair or window, whatever it is. So you need to keep that in mind as you do your drawing. So understanding where the light source comes from. But in most cases, if you're drawing a portrait or you're drawing a picture of something from real life, you've obviously got the light source there anyway, which is quite often daylight, but in some cases it might be that you've got a secondary light source coming in from a light or a lamp or a street light or car headlights or whatever it may be. But just bearing that in mind, if you're not drawing from real life and you're just having a quick doodle like I am now, so this is that dark tone in the centre here that we're not going to get perfect right now with this layer, and probably not with this pencil. We're going to need to go darker onto the 2B. Blend this in a little. What I like to tend to do is just get it into a small point like this, and then using a circular motion, trying to go from the darkest area to the light, so that you are blending the graphite or the charcoal or whatever it is that you're using. Still on the HB, we're going to give that another layer, using what we call a tapered stroke. So I'm holding the pencil between my finger and my two thumbs, so not the same way that you might sign your signature, or a lot of people actually draw like that. So what I'm doing is I'm using this tapered stroke, so I'm actually just catching the edge of the paper, catching the paper with the edge of the pencil, and you get a little bit more control over the pressure that you're applying. So I'm just going to really focus on this middle area here for a second, making sure that I'm getting enough graphite on the page so that I can work with it in a little while. You can probably already see, as I look down through the camera and the viewfinder there, that this is already starting to look slightly more three-dimensional, just as a result of focusing on the areas that are going to be darkest, blending after each application of graphite to the page, and always working towards that lighter spot, the highlight, and making sure that we're not covering that too much. Let's have a go with the 2B then. So here's my 2B pencil. This is going to give me a much darker tone. You'll see that straight away coming on. Okay, so it's starting to look much more 3D than the flat circle which we started with. Still sticking to our rules of light. We know where it's coming from, we know where it's not getting to, we know which areas are the darkest. We're building the graphite up on the page so that we're not marking the tooth of the page, because paper has something called a tooth to it, and if you look at it under a magnifying glass, paper is not actually smooth. And what happens is if you damage the tooth, you make the tooth of the paper sit flat on itself. It's almost virtually impossible to get the graphite out. So if I take my kneaded eraser here, just to quickly show you, it's looking quite dark, but I can quite easily take some of that off without any worry. If I'm using too much pressure and I'm holding the pencil in the wrong way, it starts to make that very, very difficult to take any of the values off, and can actually end up ruining your picture very, very quickly. So starting to add in these, still the 2B, I'm not going to go any darker than 2B, I can go as dark as I really want to with this 2B, but you could use 6B, 4B, to a 9, charcoal and pencil goes quite well. In actual fact, what I'll probably do is I'll make another video showing you the same process but just using a charcoal, rather than changing the pencils and going through the different grades of pencil. What we can do is show you how to get the lighter tones with the charcoal just by simply applying it in a slightly different way and not as heavily, and blending it. So how's that looking? It's looking pretty good actually. I'm not too far off from being happy with that. I'm going to taper into the highlighted area now a little bit. And the edge of any shape is always going to be the darkest, and that's really what starts to bring out. If you have a look at the portrait again of Morgan Freeman, if you look at the guy's nose here, this is a dark line, this is the edge, edges of his crease here, edges of the eyes, edges of the face. So making sure that we do get a darker edge is really important, but we're not drawing a big heavy line, we're tapering in from it all the time, just making sure that the graphite's blending nicely. It's not just a series of lines. In fact, the less lines you can put on your drawing the better, unless you're going for a cartoon effect, which you might want to do. You might want to be drawing a caricature, or you might be drawing a cartoon character, but for me, drawing real life subjects is what I enjoy the most, and there aren't many lines in real life. Coming in from the highlight now. A little bit more blending, but you can see now that what we're starting to be left with is something that definitely resembles a 3D sphere. I'm going to show you a little trick in a second that's going to bring the whole piece together and really make it stand out. But just darkening it, I think that the thing you've got to remember is just be patient. You don't need to get your darkest value down straight away. That's the one thing that I've learnt in my short space of time, you know, sort of, what are we on now? November, so 5 months I've really been focusing on my drawing. The number one thing that I've learnt is don't rush. You know, it's not a race, it's not a competition. It doesn't matter if it takes you 10 minutes or 3 hours. Work at your own pace and let the pencils and the charcoal and whatever you're using do its job. Let the graphite move across the paper the way that it's designed to. Don't dive in straight away and try and get your black tones in there or your very dark tones in straight away, and just build them up gradually. Take it easy. So we're going to start getting this midsection now slightly darker. So I'm just using a little bit more pressure. You should be able to see that starting to come out. Yeah, I can see that on the camera nicely now. It's actually showing up better on the camera than it probably is here. It's a little bit gloomy today. It's November. What are we on, the 22nd? Not far from Christmas, but as you can probably tell, it's not very light outside. It's pretty gloomy, in fact. So let's have a little blend on that. How we're looking. Okay, I think we can go slightly darker on this edge. If you actually think about it, what we're tending to do here is work in the same way that the moon reflects the light back at night from the sun. It's why we get a full moon and we get a half moon and a new moon. The light from the sun is hitting the spherical object, and depending on where it's positioned in relation to us, you see lighted areas and dark areas. And the darker areas are, the moon's still there, it's not changed shape, it's just simply the fact that we can't see it because the light's unable to reach it from our point of view, which is similar in a sense to what we're doing here. So you get that sort of crescent shape leading out towards the highlight over here. However, I know the light is up here, so I'm going to darken this edge slightly to add some contrast, so that when I do take some of the value out of the highlighted area, it looks more realistic and it stands out a little bit more, because contrast is really what you want to be looking for in your portraits, your pictures. If I show you this one again, the reason that this stands out is because I've made the black background. The hair, before I put the background on, didn't really stand out, didn't pop at all, but adding the black background just to make sure that we've got a contrast there made the lighter areas stand out, which is what you'll see in a second. Have a blend. So using my kneaded eraser, I'm just going to get it to a chunky end, rounded end. I'm just going to start to pull some of this value away there, using a thinner end to get the actual brightest part, and I'm just building away from it really, taking a little bit out. I'm going to just blend that slightly. I think I'm going to tidy up the edge because some of the graphite has moved away, so I'm going to try and get a nice clean edge over here, and then I'm going to add what I think is the most important part, is the shadow, because the shadow is going to give that illusion of depth of something sitting on the page. There's a couple of things you've got to make sure you get right when you do a shadow, which I'll show you when I get to it. So just tidying this up a little bit more. Okay, so if the light's coming from this direction, the shadow is going to be cast over here. So we're going to go straight in with the 2B. You could build up again from the 4H if you wanted to get a nice smooth shape, but I think we can get the gist of what we're looking for here. Simply just going straight in with the 2B. Now, the thing with the shadow is, it's going to be darkest right under here. So this is going to be virtually your darkest value, or in fact it's going to be your darkest value, right underneath where the ball is touching the ground. This has got to be your darkest value there. So we start with the darkest value, and in actual fact, even on a portrait drawing, you can look at loads of videos, most people always start with their darkest values and they work out, which is then going to give you the illusion of form, of depth. So we'll do a bit of a blend. Let's darken that up a little bit. Always working away from the darkest area, tapering that stroke. So there's more pressure at the start, nearer the darkest shaded area, and working away. And the other trick when we're using shadows, certainly on a background like this, is we don't want a really defined, blocked out shadow. The further it gets away, the light, is it diffracts? Is that the right word? I think it might be. So you can now see that after, I don't know, what have we done, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? We've got a relatively good looking sphere, obeying some simple rules and principles. And I say it about all of my drawings, but I'm sure you say it about yours as well. You could never finish a drawing. You could probably spend another 3 hours on this, perfecting it and darking areas out and shading them. And yes, you're going to make it look amazing, but I don't think this needs that. Just for the simple demonstration of drawing a sphere, understanding how light affects certain objects, and once you grasp that and you're able to draw this just from your mind without having to copy it, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with copying. I copied loads to start with. That's all I did. Sphere, 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 sphere. There's my highlight. There's my shadow. I think we're looking good on there. I hope you enjoyed that. I've actually quite enjoyed doing this and talking some nonsense for 10 minutes, but I hope somebody finds it interesting, because I certainly looked for inspiration when I was learning, and I'm still learning now, of course, everybody's still learning, but as I was getting some ideas and trying to make my drawings better, I used to love watching videos like this. So I thought somebody out there might like it as well. And hopefully we'll make their drawings better just with some of the information and the help that I've given you there. If you like this video, give us a subscribe or a thumbs up or a like, or leave me a comment. Like I say, it's a pretty enjoyable way to spend a gloomy Tuesday morning. But you can see I'm babbling now, and I'm still going on. I'm still drawing more. I'm still drawing more. You get addicted to it all. If you're anything like me, you do, and constantly trying to refine the shape and the shading and the shadow. But that's looking pretty good for me. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll tune into another one of my videos. I'm going to do a couple of time-lapse videos of some portraits. If there's anything you'd like me to draw, or anybody you'd like me to draw, leave me a comment, and I'll try and do my best. Thanks for watching. Bye. Hey guys, I thought I'd just do a quick video just to basically show you how to get a little bit of depth in your drawings. It was something that when I first started drawing portraits, my drawings looked a little bit flat. So I sort of looked online and looked at some tutorials, and I found the best thing to do was to try and draw some spheres, some 3D spheres from a circle. So I'm just going to quickly draw one and just show you the basics of it. I'm going to start with a 2H pencil. I've also got an HB pencil, a 2B pencil, and my trusted kneadable eraser, which is really, really important. So if we start with a 2H pencil, if we start off by just drawing sort of a basic circle, it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. Now, the important thing for you to decide is what direction the light's going to come from. So if I go over that in the 2B, which is a little bit darker, so you can see it on the camera. So if the light's coming from this direction, what we need to understand is this area here is going to be called the highlight. This is going to be the white area. If I just quickly show you my latest portrait that I've done, so this is of Morgan Freeman, you can clearly see that the highlighted areas are here on the guy's forehead, around the nose there. So the light is coming in from this direction, which is the same direction that I'm going to show you on the sphere video. This side here is the darkened area. So this is what's going to give you the illusion of form and shape in your flat drawings. So what I'm basically going to do to start with is I'm going to start off, wrong pencil, with the 2H, which is a very light pencil. It's very easy to rub out. And I'm going to cover the darkest area to begin with. Doesn't need to be neat. So we're covering the darkest area, which is facing away from the light. And the bottom also is very dark, because obviously no light can get there. Light's traveling in a straight line, which is how we get the illusion of shape, because the areas towards the light are obviously catching the first rays of the light, and it's shading the other areas. Basically, all you've got in anything you look at, whether it's a table or a person out in the sunshine or even in a dark, dimly lit room, you've basically got light areas and dark areas. There's no lines on anything. The darkest areas are obviously what are going to show up as your shaded areas, your shadows. The lighter areas, where the light's hitting it, is where you're going to get your colours starting to come through. If you're looking at a colour picture, or if you're drawing a pencil portrait, you're going to get your lighter tones, your light greys, almost to the whites. So we've covered it all in with this 2H. Let me just blend that slightly.